Hi, I'm Cori Wamsley. I'm the CEO of Auroracorialis Publishing. I'm also an author of 10 books and a writing coach, and I've been a book editor for a long time. We now pass the books on to some of our other editors, so I'm more running the company instead of doing the editing, because I am super busy helping people get their transformational stories out to the world. Today, I wanted to talk to you about how to work effectively with your editor. If you are writing a book, I don't care what genre it is, I don't care how many books you've written, I don't care how many degrees or letters or whatever you have after your name, you need to work with a professional book editor. I'm sure that your aunt, who's been an English teacher at the high school her entire career, is amazing, but she's not a book editor. I'm sure that your best friend, who is really good at reading over your emails or a professional letter that you put out, is amazing, but he's not a book editor. You need to work with a book editor, somebody who has taken a large work, and we're talking like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, a huge work, that many words, and has read the whole thing, is able to see it as an entire piece and also break it down into smaller pieces by chapter, by section, by paragraph, and make sure that the whole thing flows properly. I think that there are some misconceptions about what an editor does. It's more than just making sure that you have the right punctuation. We all want to make sure our commas are in the right spot, but you want to make sure that the book is actually flowing properly, that you're not repeating yourself, that you're not contradicting yourself, that you're not talking about things that are above what your reader is going to be at. So if your reader is just standard public, people who aren't well versed in your topic, you don't want to be talking to them at this level, the level of people who are 20 years into their career, PhDs, specialists in the topic. You want to be talking to them here, meet them where they are. That's something that an editor will do for you, is to make sure that you are meeting people where they are on that topic. I want to stress from the very beginning here that your editor is your ally. And I know that because we've all had English classes in the past, high school, college, whenever you've taken English classes, we've all had red lines or edits on our work. And when we see that red pen, we automatically think, I'm wrong. That's not at all what that means. The red pen does not mean I'm wrong. The red pen or the red marks on the computer or whatever color it's coming through in, if you're doing track changes, sometimes that changes. Those marks are saying, let me help you. This is something I would like to change. This is something to make the book better. Your editor and you have the same exact goal. Your editor loves your work and wants to help you make it better because they want you to be able to connect with your reader. And that's something your English teacher was doing too. It's just you were viewing it, and I did the same thing. We all view this from the perspective of, I am turning this in. Am I going to be right? Is this right? Is this good? Understand that it's already good. If you have the heart to write this book, it's already good. It's already going to make an impact. Your editor's going to come in and make it even better. It's going to make it easier to connect. It's going to make it flow. And the work they're doing is going to make sure that you are getting across to your audience what you want to say. All that said, this is really a mindset thing. This is something that we have to step back and say, how am I going to work with my editor to make this an effective relationship? Because you want it to be effective, or else you're going to be fighting them and feeling like crap because you think that they're correcting you. I don't want that for you. I want you to understand that when you're working with your editor, it's a conversation. So let's say that you get your work back. Our editors do 2 rounds of editing. So if you send it to one of our editors and they go through it the first time, they're going to make lots of comments. They might make some changes. They might be tightening up sentences, removing extra words that don't make sense, those kind of things. Those aren't really errors. Those are tightening and cleaning and making it a little more palatable, right? It's like adding a little salt and pepper to a potato when you're eating it. It's, potato's fine, but when you add a little salt, pepper, and butter to it, it makes it even better. So have a conversation with them. Understand from the beginning what you can expect from them. When we do our books, usually we say, you can expect a copy edit. A copy edit is a basic level edit. It's slightly above proofreading. Proofreading is just like making sure that you got your punctuation right and that you didn't miss any words. A copy edit is going to do all of that. Plus, it's going to give you making sure that the book flows, making sure that things make sense. If your editor spots something that's confusing, they're going to say something. So I wanted to go over some of the things that I've bumped into with clients in the past when they weren't quite ready for that editing process and understanding the full breadth of what they were going to get. I had somebody once say that there was a section that the editor made wrong. And by that, they meant that they changed the wording and it didn't mean the same thing that the author intended. Now, when something like that happens, it's not because your editor's stupid or because they're being a jerk. It's because they read that and they took it a different way, which means that it was ambiguous. It means that there was a different meaning to it, because remember that your editor is coming to this piece with all the knowledge they have, all of their experience. They might not be an expert in cutting hair or changing the oil in your car or running a six-figure business or whatever it is that you are writing about. Your editor is an expert in everything that they have lived, and they've probably worked on a lot of books that might be in your realm too. However, they aren't going to have the same in-depth knowledge that you have over here. So if your editor is changing something that you wrote and it's wrong, that is an opportunity for you to ask yourself things like, how can I change this to make it so the reader is going to understand what I'm saying? Because if your editor didn't understand it, that means your reader's not going to understand it. So this is where you can say, hey, this isn't quite right. How about this? How does this sound? Because remember, lots of words can mean different things, especially if you have a word that the average person thinks it means this, but in your industry, it means something completely different. So your editor is coming at it, maybe thinking, okay, this is what the average person thinks. This doesn't make any sense to me. And you're over here saying, no, this is what it is in my industry. Okay, so when you are coming together with your editor, you have to have conversations. You have to ask questions and be open to adjusting some things to make sure that your reader understands it. I've also had a couple people who've complained there was not enough editing or that there was too much editing. And this comes usually from a place where you think that you either need a ton of work or you don't need any work. And both of those things can be problems. So you have to ask yourself, what is it I am expecting from my editor? If I hand my editor work and it comes back bloody and I'm surprised, then that means I have to kind of adjust what I'm thinking. Okay, this needed a lot more help than I thought. I'm not going to get angry with somebody who was willing to dive in and make a lot more changes than I was expecting. But I have had people say, what is this? I wasn't expecting this level of editing. So I think that we need to be both open to a little extra or open to a little less, and also understand what type of editing the editor is going to be doing. So if that means a couple questions up front, hey, what do you usually do? What can I expect? That's great. If you get something back and you really expected them to go a lot deeper into the editing, then that's an opportunity for you to say, hey, this isn't what I expected. I thought this needed more work. What do you think? Did you think that it reads well? Did you think that there are other things I need to add? I'm feeling like my book isn't adequate enough as is, and it needs a lot more work. It's not an opportunity for you to come at your editor and say, well, you don't know what you're doing. The editor was coming at it from a perspective of, I want this to be clear to the reader. So if they read your book and they said, this is actually really good, then that's a win for you. But you have to talk to your editor. So if you come at it and say, hey, I thought you were going to make more edits, this wasn't what I was expecting, the editor might look at it and say, okay, I thought that this was what you were expecting. And then they might go back and read it. If you're working with a publishing house and something like this happens, absolutely talk to the editor, Or if you feel more comfortable, reach out to the person in charge. So like if somebody's working with me, and I've had this happen in the past where they say, hey, this isn't what I was expecting from my editor. And I will jump in and say, all right, let me see what you have. Let me look at the edits. And 9 times out of 10, I would say, you know what? You're being really harsh on yourself. This is an excellent book. This is something that did not need a lot of extra editing. It's clear, it makes sense. They're just brushing it up a little bit. They had a couple questions. Let's address those. So there are so many things at play there that you really have to have a conversation. You have to make sure that it's something that you understand where you are and the level that your book is at. You're expecting a certain thing from your editor, and that's what they're fulfilling. And if not, if things aren't being met, if there's not an evenness of this is what I expect and this is what I'm getting, have a conversation. It's just like anything else that you would be doing if you were working with a web designer or if you were working with a business coach and something wasn't quite meshing, you would say, hey, I was expecting this. What's up? Can we have a conversation about it? What you shouldn't do is freak out. What you shouldn't do is run off and say, oh my God, my editor doesn't know what they're doing. I would hope that that's not something anybody would do, but it does happen to people. So if you are going through the editing process, come at it from the perspective of my editor's my ally. We have the same goals and we need to have conversations. Your editor should be putting comments on your work saying, can you explain this a little bit more? Or I adjusted this. What do you think about this? I found that when I've edited pieces in the past, that it's a lot easier if I'm just open about why I'm changing things. Hey, I removed this because it sounded a lot like the paragraph above it. Or can you explain to me what's going on here? I don't have a full background of this topic. So if you can, give me a little extra information, I think I can make it clearer for the reader. If your editor isn't doing that sort of thing and you want to ask them to do that, ask them to do that. Remember that this is your book. You don't have to accept all the edits from the editor, but chances are if you're working with an editor, then you need to be actually communicating with them and making sure that you guys are working together on the book. So if you are working on a book and you are looking for editing, absolutely reach out to me. Let me know where you are in the process and let's have a conversation because we love helping people get their transformational stories out there. And we want to make sure that they are well edited and that they help you connect with your audience.